Greetings, students. This is Mr. Burns, one of your favorite Minnesota Studies teachers. Today we're going to talk about the Treaty of Travese, Sioux, which was signed in 1851. There was a companion treaty as well, called the Treaty of Mendota, that was signed a few weeks later. And what I hope to do in this video is explain a few of the things that went into the negotiations and the signing of this treaty. Here on this screen we see a map of Minnesota, and we see the western bands of the Dakota and their lands. Now note the Minnesota River is in the middle of this map. So we see the Wahpeton, the Wapakute, and the Midwakaton. And then next to the yellow triangle you see the word Sisseton. So that's kind of the general location of the Sisseton band. In the 1840s and the 1850s, life got rough for the Dakota people in Minnesota. They had been involved in the fur trade for well over 100 years, and the fur trade had made them dependent on the goods that they bought from the Europeans, but it also had wiped out the fur-bearing animals in Minnesota. So they often found themselves going hungry because there was not enough animals that they had once hunted to sustain them. So the chiefs, when they went into this, they were in a weakened bargaining position, and they were just trying to sell some of their land so that they could get money and get goods to ease some of the suffering of their people. So let's find out more about what's going on here. Alright, now with this slide, this is a picture of the final maybe treaty negotiations and the signing of the Treaty of Travese, Sioux in 1851. On the right, shaking the hand of the American Indian, is the territorial governor, and his name was Alexander Ramsey. To his left is probably the federal Indian commissioner, and his name is Luke Lee. And then right next to him, also on the left, next to Luke Lee, the third man, is Henry Sibley. And all three of these men are going to play an important role in these treaty negotiations. Now, Luke Lee was a prominent Whig politician. He was from Minnesota. As the commissioner, the federal commissioner of Indian Affairs, he was in charge of all the relations between the federal government and all of the Native American tribes. He had two goals. The first was to open up the Central Plains to settlement by Americans, and the second one was to push American Indian tribes into assimilating. By assimilating, he wanted them to adopt white ways, he wanted them to become farmers, and he wanted them to learn English. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Next slide. Here is the important territorial governor of Minnesota. He's the first territorial governor. His name is Alexander Ramsey. He is also a Whig politician. He had supported presidential candidate Zachary Taylor, and as a reward, he was made the territorial governor of Minnesota. He's going to serve in that position from 1849 to 1853. Alexander Ramsey had one big priority when he came into office, and that's to get land from the Dakota and also land from the Ojibwe. So under him, these negotiations are going to take place where the federal government tries to buy lands from both of these tribes. Let's go to the next slide. Here we have another important person in Minnesota history, and this is Henry Sibley. So Henry Sibley was a prominent businessman. He was a fur trader. He was a partner in the American Fur Company. And as we've learned, 1830s, 1840s, 1850s, those were not good times for the fur trade. The fur trade had collapsed in Minnesota, and fur traders ended up in debt because the Dakota and the Ojibwe weren't bringing in the furs that they had once brought in. So Sibley claimed that a huge debt was owed to him by the Dakota people, and the fur traders were hoping when these land deals were made, they would get some of this money. Now the federal government throws a kind of a wrench into that plan. It was illegal to put money into these treaties to pay off the fur traders. So Henry Sibley plays a big role both before and after these negotiations take place. In the before part of it, Sibley goes around to a lot of the mixed race Dakota people, those that had a Dakota mother, father, and an American father, and he persuades them that it's in their best interest to support these negotiations for land deals. He also goes to the governor and says, look, if you want to buy land for settlement from the American Indians, you're going to need the support of the traders, and you're not going to get any support from us traders until our debts are taken care of. So he has Ramsey on his side. In the after part, well, before I get to that, the most controversial thing that Henry Sibley does is he's involved in what's called the trade papers. Now, remember I said it was illegal for the traders to get money from any of these treaties? Well, they had a workaround, and their workaround was these trade papers, which was a third set of documents that men like Henry Sibley, Joe Brown, and Martin McLeod, important traders, backed. And in this third document, the Dakota pledged to pay off the traders before they got any of their money from the federal government. The last thing Sibley did was he was the territorial representative in Congress. So when he went back to Washington, D.C. after these treaties had been negotiated, many Southern senators opposed these treaties because they did not want to see free states growing faster than the slave states. So they opposed the treaties. But Sibley went to work and he got enough senators to support the Treaty of Travese Sioux and the Treaty of Mendota so that they passed. Let's continue on. I know this is complicated. All right, looking here, we have the Treaty of Travese Sioux, and again we're looking at this picture which shows the negotiations taking place there and the shaking hands and the signing. Some of the things that the Dakota were to receive was over $1.5 million, but most of this is going to be held by the federal government. And then each year the Dakota were going to get an interest payment, and that would probably be just over $60,000. This is called an annuity, and the government's going to pay them an annuity for the next 50 years. They were also going to get a reservation, which was the western half of the Minnesota River, 10 miles on both sides. So when you put the two treaties together, over 24 million acres of land was going to go to the new territory of Minnesota. And if we do one last zoom in here and we look at this map here, there's all the land in southern Minnesota and a little bit of Iowa that's going to become part of the territory of Minnesota. Let's go to the next slide. This is Stephen Riggs. Stephen Riggs is a Presbyterian minister. He was important to the Dakota because he came to Minnesota and he lived among the Dakota people for many decades. He had a bias for white culture and for the government. He wanted to see the Dakota assimilate, that is, to become farmers and adopt the Christian religion. He played an important role in helping preserve the Dakota language. He wrote the first alphabet, and he wrote a dictionary of Dakota. So he had learned the Dakota language, and he's going to serve as an interpreter at the treaty negotiations. He's also going to be involved with the traders' papers deception. So he's the man who's going to lead the chiefs over to that third document to sign, and it probably was not well explained to them. So that's why you can maybe say that that was a fraud or a deception. Next up, we've got what we call was the traders' papers deception. So here at this overturned barrel was the third document. Many of the chiefs probably thought they were signing a third copy of the treaty. Seated at that barrel is Joe Brown. He was an important trader. He was a friend of Henry Sibley. And when it was all said and done, the traders are going to get their hands on $210,000 of the funds that were meant for the Dakota people. This is going to kind of lead to some hard feelings and some very definite mistrust from the Dakota and what was done to them. Later on, Congress was going to investigate this matter of the Trader Papers, and even though they uncovered evidence that there was wrongdoing here, both Alexander Ramsey and Henry Sibley had no action taken against them. All right, on our final slide here then, we are looking at the treaty that was signed by the Dakota, and you see that their names are printed there, and because they could not read or write, on the far right hand side of the treaty is, you know, their marks that signified that they had signed that. We see one in the middle. It says Majashi. Okay, Majashi is an important Sisseton leader, and he was one of the American Indians that signed the treaty. His English name is Red Iron, so we have Majasha, or Red Iron. He opposed the treaty. He didn't feel that they were being treated fairly, but he felt great pressure to sign it to relieve the suffering of his people. And I believe that he's probably a pretty good person to speak for most of the Dakota, that they went along with signing the treaty because their people were suffering and they thought the money would help them in the long run. All right, this video has taken longer than what I thought it would, but I've given you lots of really great information on the treaties of Travese des Sioux. So I'm going to be signing off here. Thank you.